So Facebook, Twitter, and Squidoo. That's all you need. And you need a website. Okay. Now, for those of you with the eye rolling saying, oh my God, now I have to create all this content and I have to leave this session early so I can go home and start blogging. Let me tell you a little secret. Use your website as your hub. Think about all the content that you already have. Maybe you have articles. Maybe you have past blog posts. Maybe you've been blogging for 2 or 3 years and you think, oh, now I'm going to start. Doggone it, I wish I would have started this earlier. Okay? Recycle, 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 recycle. Many times, not many times, but frequently enough, I'll go back to old evergreen blog posts and recycle them. Okay? So you may be sitting on a lot of existing content. That's the first thing that you need to look at is how much existing content do you have? The other piece of existing content, for those of you who have written nonfiction, is your book. In some form or fashion, Red Hot Internet Publicity, and changing hands probably doesn't want me saying this, but Red Hot Internet Publicity is excerpted everywhere online. Now, if you've got 5 days to go dig up this entire book, then more power to you. I will actually give you a book, right? But I've used and reused this. You've created it. Why not? Right? And actually, and I mean, I don't mean to sound like a stalker, but Seth Godin proved this out with the Idea Virus. He gave away that book. Gosh, I think this was about 5 years ago? I think it was about 5 years ago. He gave away the book and ebook on his site to prove a point to the publishers. Gave away the entire book. Then it was released and it still hit the bestseller list. At the same time, you could still get the book for free on his site. Okay, so giving it away for free doesn't mean, obviously you want to be careful about that. I mean, I think Seth has a brand so he could sort of get away with that a little bit more, you know, than maybe you or I could. But you have the content, okay? Now, sites like Facebook and Squidoo and Twitter, as I pointed out with Twitter feed, have access points where you can syndicate your content to those sites, okay? Facebook has a post-it where you can post notes, where you can link your blog. Squidoo has the same thing, okay? You can also update your Facebook page, fan page or profile with your Twitter account. You can do the same thing with Squidoo, okay? So, follow me for just a second. And I'm going to actually make a diagram of this. Wish me luck. Like I said, I'm not very good at this whole chalkboard thing. All right, so you've got your website right here, all right? Now you are using it to update your Facebook page, Twitter, and Squidoo, okay? So you're using one place to create content and you're driving all these other sites. Do you have a quick question?
Do you recommend having the blog on your website?
Absolutely. Absolutely have it on your website. Absolutely have it on your website. But you're driving all this content. If the only thing that you ever do is update your blog and do blog commenting, you can leave the class because you've graduated with an A. Most people don't even do that. Truly. How many of you have ever, like, you know, blog abandonment? I mean, there are how many million blogs that are started every single week, and then, right? Are you one of them? You know what's so funny is I used to do this by the show of hands. How many of you have blog guilt, right? How many of you, like you're sitting here thinking, oh dear God, she's talking about blogging. I have to note to self, go home and update your blog, right? I was in Minnesota once in February. I'm a really brave traveler, doing an all-day session, and we were talking about internet marketing, and I'm like, oh, blogging, you got a blog, and I thought, oh my God, when did I write my blog? You know, so sometimes, especially when I get into traveling and whatnot, if I don't schedule my posts in advance, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I got a blog, well, I got a Twitter, I got a blog, ooh, let me pick one. But if you update your blog regularly, it will feed into these sites, okay? The other thing that you can do is something called article syndication. How many of you have ever syndicated articles online? Grail? Anybody else? Okay. Mm-hmm. By the way, Ezine Articles, I know everybody knows this site, but let me tell you something. Ezine Articles is one of the top sites to send your articles to, okay? EzineArticles.com, And actually, the other one, goarticles.com. Okay, Easing Articles and Go Articles. Those are two really, really great sites to link your to send your content to as well. Now, I do a newsletter. I blog on the Huffington Post. I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that to overwhelm you. I have the blog on my site. I have Twitter, Facebook, Squidoo, right? Truly, I don't sleep at night, but I recycle. So when I write for the Huffington Post, I try and keep that very unique to them. Like, I don't blog on whatever I put on the Huffington Post. But every once in a while, what I'll do is I will put those articles in our newsletter, because our newsletter isn't live. It goes out via email, which, by the way, is going to be dead in 2 years, as I mentioned. It goes out via email. But when I have an article that I write unique for the newsletter, which goes out every 2 weeks, and it's not on the Huffington Post site, I will syndicate that article. And then when I syndicate it, I will also maybe excerpt it and put it on the blog. And when I syndicate it, I will run a link on my Twitter page so that it takes people to my article. And you can use a service called Post Later to help you recycle content. Be very careful with this, though. Be very careful with recycling content, because you don't want to do like we've seen marketers that will recycle the same post over and over again and consequently get shut down. And it's not like you can call the people at Twitter and go, hey, right? What happened? You have to basically deal with somebody, I don't know, we're in India or something, to try and get your site back.
What you're saying then is to post the article, post it on Twitter, and then 6 months down the road have the same post go out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
6 months, 2 weeks, a month. Doesn't have to be 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Not too frequently that.
Not too frequently. Now, by the way, all of these links are in here. If you did not get this handout, this handout, take my card and I will email it to you, because like I said, I didn't bring enough for today. I wasn't expecting such an exciting turnout, but I'm so glad you're all here. Okay. So that's a really, now this will save you a ton of time. Now, here's what else I want you to do. In the morning, I want you to take 15 minutes, okay? And I want you to look at all your RSS feeds, your five that you're following, okay? And I want you to go in and just comment whenever you can. Generally speaking, I'll try to comment on like once a week or something. I mean, really, we all have lives, right? We have families, or we're waiting for dinner and, right, everything else, and jobs we have to go to, many of us. So go and spend 15 minutes doing that. Update your Facebook profile. Say what you're doing, okay? Maybe go in, here's a little secret to Facebook, by the way, which is great networking. Go in and wish people a happy birthday. How many of you are on Facebook, right? And your birthday comes around, you're getting all these birthday wishes. The first year I was on Facebook, I got like 300 birthday wishes. I felt so I mean, I must lead an isolated life. I felt so fabulous. I was like, oh, the love on Facebook, right? So then go on to Squidoo, like I said, once a week, and upload a new article, upload a new video, upload new content. The other key to successful internet marketing is to always stay on point. Do not change horses mid-race. What I mean by that is do not change your message because you think your message has no stickiness to it. If you think you're not on message, go and hire somebody who can be very objective. Don't ask your neighbor or your mom or your brother. Hire somebody who has nothing to gain or lose by just being objective, okay? We had a book that came to us last year, actually. Many of you may have heard the story. It was called Murder by Family. And the story was about Kent Whitaker. His son plotted his family's murder. Kent Whitaker lost his wife and his other son. He himself was shot. He ended up forgiving his son for this and still visits him in prison. The story was amazing. When Simon & Schuster first released it, they pushed it to the true crime market, thinking, ooh, that's the right market for this book. True crime could care less about the story. I ran into the agent at a conference I was at, and she said, Penny, Kent, he's such a dear man. You've got to help him. You've got to help him. So I took a look at this book, and I said, you know, the guy forgave his son. Who's missing the point, right? Even Oprah, bless her heart, did a story on just the sensationalism of this crime. Nobody looked at the forgiveness aspect of it. So we took it to the Christian bloggers. We had 65 review requests in one day when I was testing this market. I kid you not. And they ended up doing a blog carnival with him and this blog thing. A year and a half after this book was out, 2020 calls. And they said, we want to do a story on forgiveness. They did an hour-long story. This is almost unheard of in traditional publishing, on a book that is that old, because by the time it's a year and a half, they're like, it's remaindered. It's sitting on a table somewhere for $1. Poor Kent Whitaker, right? Whatever, nobody cares. The book, Simon & Schuster ended up putting that book into paperback. So it could pay for you to, whether it's locally or whoever that you can sort of brainstorm with, if you feel like you are not on the right message, if you feel like you're just not hitting your stride, then it's okay to change horses like Kent did. But otherwise, stay on message. Stay on message, stay on point. Think of it this way. Let's say every evening you tune in and watch the CBS Evening News. Okay. On Monday night, you get to watch the news. On Tuesday, there's a rerun of Frasier. And you're like, where's the news? On Thursday, there's an episode of Survivor. I'm probably like mixing networks, but anyway, whatever. There's an episode of Survivor, and you're like, what's going on? Would you not be confused? Right? The same thing happens when you blog one day. If you've written about yoga, and one day you blog about yoga, and the next day you blog about your mother-in-law's pot roast recipe. And I'm really not making that up, actually, because I've seen it done. So stay on message. It's very, very, very important to stay on message, okay? Identify your content, recycle to the degree that you can. Don't make this any harder on yourself than you really need to, okay?